everyone, and welcome to another episode. My name is Dana, and my guest today is Glenda Snodgrass. How are you, Glenda?
I'm fine. How are you?
Very good, very good. I'm glad you're joining us here. And before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, what you do, your business, all that kind of stuff?
Sure. So I own an information security consulting firm in Mobile, Alabama. If you're not familiar with the geography, that puts us on the upper Gulf Coast, right between Pensacola and New Orleans. So we've been in business since 1996, which is a long time for cybersecurity. So that's what we've been doing. I do a lot of security awareness training and a lot of public speaking and work with a lot of organizations at developing their information security programs and their compliance programs.
Well, that's fantastic. And I'm sure you have seen a lot since 1996.
Yeah.
Few stories there, that's for sure. That's for sure. Well, we're going to talk about an important thing today that people need to keep in mind, that we can't just set it and forget it when it comes to cybersecurity, because we have the people. So we're going to talk about the people factor today, and specifically with CMMC. So the first question is going to be, so what is the people factor?
Well, this is one of my favorite topics. I'm sure you're familiar with the three pillars of information security: people, policy and procedure, and technology. People come first. This is what I tell my clients all the time. People come first. A lot of people mistakenly think that information security, cybersecurity is an IT thing, right? But I keep telling people, you cannot throw enough money at this problem to make it go away. You cannot put enough technology in place to truly secure your network if you haven't trained your people. Your people need to understand the technology, they need to understand the policies and the processes, and they need to know how to follow them to do their jobs correctly. So developing good policies and procedures has a lot to do with, I like to say, making the right thing easy and the wrong thing hard. If your users can follow the rules and get their job done, they're going to do it, right? Make that right thing easy. If you set policies and procedures that are too difficult and people have to jump through hoops to get their jobs done, they're going to make an end run around them. But people are always the key to your security. So it's something that you've always got to keep in mind when you're developing your information security programs.
Mm-hmm. And I think that is, as we've been saying, that's one of the biggest problems, is that until you address the people, we're not going to fix this. And I think that's why it's been such a problem up until this point. We keep throwing money at it because we want to set it and forget it solution. And we can't do that. This is a cultural change that we have to have within all of our organizations. And that's what we need to, hit home with everybody. But you brought up a very good point about you can't make it difficult. I mean, as soon as you make something difficult, they're going to try to figure out what's the easiest workaround that we can do to get around the security. And that's going to go out the window. And that's not what we want them to do. So that was important. I'm glad that you said that. Okay, so now in relation to CMMC, what is the people, is important to CMMC compliance?
Well, it's important for two reasons. Number one, because, CMMC is not just about compliance. It's about actual security, right? It's about securing your network, your company's information, your intellectual property, as well as securing Department of Defense information. So we've already said you can't throw enough technology at this problem, right? People have to be a part of it. And that's why every major security standard, including NIST 800-171 and by extension CMMC, has components, requirements for employee training. PCI for credit card merchants, Graham-Leach for financial institutions. It really doesn't matter what the security standard is. They all include requirements for training, because we understand that this is not just a technology problem, it's a people problem. So there are actually several requirements in CMMC that require employee training, and some of them are a little bit more in depth than what a lot of people think about or understand when they look at the training requirements in CMMC.
Well, can you get a little bit, give us some examples of what that would be, where somebody may not think that it's something as in depth?
Okay, so security awareness training, that's one of the requirements. So a lot of my clients will say, oh, well, we subscribe to this video series and they have to watch this 5-minute video every 3 months. And I'm like, well, that's good. That's a good place to start, but that's not going to meet the CMMC requirements for training. Number one, your employees have to be trained in the security that they need to do their job. So they need to be trained in how to properly handle CUI. They need to understand CUI markings. They need to know what your company's policies and processes are with respect to how to handle CUI. They need to have security training that applies specifically to their jobs. The people who have to download CUI and put it on the network need to know what are the processes, what are the technologies that we can use to download it, where in the network does it need to go. They need to know who they can share it with. They need to know whether they can make printed copies, or if they're supposed to make printed copies, then what color folder does it go into? So your employees are supposed to be trained specifically in the security requirements for their job. If they have security duties, if they're administrators on the network, then they need to be trained in what is the proper procedure for authorizing new users and how do you configure that sort of thing. There's also insider threat training that's required in CMMC. And a lot of small organizations in particular, especially the ones who don't have a lot of turnover, I've got a lot of clients that are mom and pop shops, and they haven't had a new employee since 2008, right? Everybody that works there is relatives. They all know one another. Insider threat is not even on their radar screen, right? Because if anybody was actually getting away with anything, everybody would know about it because they all know one another. But CMMC still requires some insider threat training. So it doesn't have to be extensive, just some really basic training on what are the factors, what are the things that you look for, what are the warning signs that there might be some insider activity going on in your organization. And there are a lot of really good videos online that are free that you can watch to get this training and meet those requirements. But remember, it's about security. It's not just about compliance. This is something that, a lot of people just think, I've got to be able to check all these boxes. Well, no, you really want to be secure, right? You don't want to get ransomware. You don't want to have your network attacked. You don't want to lose your own company's intellectual property any more than you want to lose DoD information. So that's why having employees involved, understanding, trained, and aware in what they need to be doing is going to increase the security of your organization as well as increase your compliance posture.
Are you having a hard time finding new customers? A lot of folks just like you in the IT and cybersecurity space are in the same situation. And they have embraced a new opportunity to get new clients. They're doing this by growing their online presence and maximizing the power of LinkedIn. How, you ask? I have a tried and tested method called my Cyber Social Program. I myself have been on LinkedIn and now have over 3.5 million LinkedIn views, and over on YouTube, I have over 750,000 video views. So I can show you exactly how I have done that so that you can promote your organization and become the authority in your industry. And the best part is, I've done all of this organically without one paid ad. You don't need to waste your money over on Google with pay-per-click ads. Now's the time to establish yourself. Look around. The competition isn't doing it. This is your time to shine online before they do. So if you're ready to start your online journey and future-proof your business, please, down below, click the link and schedule a time for us to have a 45-minute call where I can review the exact methodology of the Cyber Social Program. You can also click below to see some of my masterclasses, which will give you quick little snippets of a couple of things you can do right away on LinkedIn that will help with your profile. I hope to see you and hear from you soon.
And even just rattling up everything you just said, you're going to open up a lot of eyes to people thinking, oh, you're right. Those little videos they're not going to cut it. And, physical security too is something that, gets ignored a little bit sometimes because, we just take it for granted. But that's another thing that we need to touch base on, and in particular with who's allowed to go where, with the CUI kind of thing. But I think that it is a lot more in depth than just watching, a few videos. And like you mentioned, there are a lot of good videos out there, which we're going to get into in a minute. But so where does training fit into CMMC? We kind of touched on this. I don't know. What would you say if you had to go into somewhere and lay out a plan for training?
Well, here's what I would start with. One thing that we like about NIST 800-171 and CMMC is that it's descriptive, not prescriptive, right? It sort of gives you a high level view of the goals that you're supposed to achieve, but it doesn't tell you specifically, it doesn't say you need to have this training program that needs to last this many minutes and you need to do it this often. So you have a bit of flexibility in how you apply those requirements to your organization based on the context, right? The size of your organization, the type of business that you have. So, in my example of the mom and pop shop that hasn't had a new employee since 2008, what kind of insider threat training do they need? Well, you know what? Once a year, they can have a pizza party for lunch. Everybody can sit in the conference room together. You can throw up a couple of the free insider threat training videos that CISA has online or FBI. Watch the videos, discuss them for 5 minutes afterwards, have a sign-up sheet. Everybody signs in that they showed up, and that's your insider threat training. It can be as simple as that in the context of your organization. Now, if you have really high turnover, if you have 15 locations, if you're bigger, if you have different circumstances, then you might need a little bit more teeth, right? A little bit more depth in your insider threat training programs. But you can start small and you can work your way up. A lot of the training requirements, they say that they have to be done periodically. And the CMMC model tells us that periodically means at least annually. So security awareness training for your employees, training on how to handle CUI, insider threat training. You need to do these things at least once a year. or anytime you do have a new hire, right? New employees need to have all the training right off the bat, and then they need to have it annually as a refresher. So that's how you can basically meet those, especially small businesses can meet those training requirements without too much burden and very little, if any, expense. Like I said, there are a lot of free resources available online that can meet these requirements.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's great that you just used that little example. If it's a company that no turnover, all that, have the pizza party, have it in writing. And you have to be thinking, when the assessor comes in, how are you going to answer this question? And by having a written document, everybody signed off that they were there, this is what we talked about, you're going to be covered. But if you don't have anything like that and you just say, well, I think we talked about it one time, so by documenting it, it's definitely going to be, helpful.
Yeah, the documentation is key, and it does not have to be complicated. It can literally be as simple as a one-page sign-in sheet, name, job title, date, time in, time out, and supervisor signs at the bottom that yes, all these people sign in and watch the video together. Boom, there's your documentation. You've met your requirements.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's a perfect example. All right, so we talked a little bit about this. Is there any more? So can you recommend some training resources for small business? I know you mentioned CISA and FBI.
Yeah, FBI's got a great video called The Inside Man. This is actually, it's like an hour long. It's an actual feature film. They hired actors and everything, and it tells this true story of an insider threat. It's actually really good video. I've seen it a couple of times, and it's available for free on YouTube. CISA, a division of DHS, they have an insider threat training page on their website. They have about 6 or 8 videos. They're like 10 or 12 minutes long. And then they have some little worksheets so that you can have some discussion with your people afterwards. DCSE actually has some insider threat training videos as well. The DoD has CUI training online for how to handle CUI documents, how to recognize the markings, how to properly shred them. And then actually CISA has some very basic security awareness training for employees, videos and that sort of thing online too. So the federal government has actually stepped up a lot in the last few years at trying to provide some of these resources for small business. And I'll be happy to send you an email afterwards with a bunch of links, and maybe we can put them up in the comments of this video so that people can find those on their own and use those in their own organizations.
Yeah, that would be great, because I think a lot of people do not know that these resources are out there or how to even go about finding them.
Right. Yep.
So I have a question. So the FBI movie, so the FBI has a YouTube channel.
Do you just go to FBI
and type in The Inside Man, and I'm going to go watch it. That sounds pretty interesting.
The first time I saw it, it was a few years ago, and it was actually on a DVD. And one of our local FBI agents brought it to an ISAC meeting that I was at, and that was part of our meeting for the day. Was we all watched this video together, and I was like, wow, this is actually really pretty good video. It turns out that they have 2 or 3 of them every few years. They get one of these, they take one of these true stories and turn it into a video. Like I said, they hire actors and it's professionally done. It's actually very entertaining.
All right. Well, everyone's got to go check that out. So that's pretty good. All right. Well, this was very, very helpful. Again, making sure that everybody focuses at the people. We can't,
It's all about the people.
Yep, absolutely. Is there anything you want to throw out there before we go?
No, I think that's good. Thanks for your time, Dana. It's been fun.
Thank you very, very much. Really appreciate your time, your expertise, and all that kind of good stuff. And hopefully you'll come back and we can do another video sometime.
I'd love to do that. You just let me know when.
All right. Awesome. Well, everybody, until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.